This negotiation is not the art of fantasy or the art of the ideal. It's the art of the possible, which is verifiable and clear in its capacity to be able to make Israel and the region safer.
That's Secretary of State John Kerry about the big deal that's been cut with Iran. The United States, Iran, and other nations have cut a deal that will pause their nuclear development for 6 months. At least that's what the deal purports to do. You know, beyond John Kerry, and one presumes the President of the United States and maybe the Iranians, I'm not finding many people who like this deal. Maybe it could be explained to us. If only we had someone. Maybe Eli Lake.
Good at that?
Eli Lake would be good at that. Eli, how are you? Good to have you with us.
How are you?
National security correspondent and all-around good guy for being up this early. Okay, look, I really am having a hard time finding anyone beyond the Iranians, John Kerry, and the President of the United States who seem to think this is a good thing.
Trita Parsi, the president of the National Iranian American Council, thinks this is a wonderful deal.
Oh, there you go. All right. Other than that, what have the Romans done for us?
Well,
I mean, this is I think, a great deal for Iran, because what it does is, yesterday on the talk shows, what you saw was Kerry saying it does not recognize a right to enrichment. And it doesn't. It doesn't technically say that the Non-Proliferation Treaty affords any country, including Iran, a right to enrichment. And that is correct as far as it goes, but that's almost beside the point, because what the deal does do is it says at the end of this whole process, you get to keep your centrifuges, you get to continue to control what's called the nuclear fuel cycle, and you get to continue to make your own nuclear fuel. And if you look at this in the context of the West's negotiations, bargaining, pressuring, sanctioning of Iran, it is a major climb down, because when this process starts in 2003, 10 years ago, when the world discovers the Natanz enrichment facility, the original demand, and the Iranians agree, is to stop enrichment altogether and negotiate, because it's such a serious violation, and because it's so serious if Iran was to get a nuclear weapon, given their support for terrorism and all the rest.
Well, I'm reading here that Benjamin Netanyahu says these are cosmetic concessions. Then he goes on to say, Israel is not bound to this agreement, which says to me, Israel may just go ahead and ignore the entire world and do what Israel really wants to do, which is degrade their nuclear weapons capability.
Well, I mean, I would be personally pretty surprised if the Israelis were to bomb the facilities in the middle of this 6-month negotiation period. Even, I think politically that would be very, very difficult. It would isolate Israel even more, even though they would have the support of certainly the Gulf monarchies and other Arab states who don't like the deal as well. But I think that, his point is that, sabotage maybe and other sorts of things will continue. And, he thinks it's a terrible deal. I mean, he believed, and I think a lot of America's allies in the Middle East believe, that this was the moment to exert maximum leverage on Iran and say, all right, your economy is really hurting. Now we're going to ask you to stop enrichment, begin taking those centrifuges out of Natanz and so forth. And that would have, the pressure would have made that possible, which is what the theory of the sanctions was. And the fact that they failed to do it means that almost like the sanctions were for naught, if that makes any sense.
It does, and Eli Lake is our guest. He's a senior national security correspondent for the Daily Beast. Senator John Kerry said that this 6-month deal makes the world safer, and yet Chuck Schumer has said that he thinks Iran got the better part of this deal. Your headline from yesterday is why the Iranian nuclear deal is dangerous over at the Daily Beast. Is there any validity to the cynics who say, the fact that this is a 6-month deal and it doesn't really seem to be in our favor suggests that they were just desperate for any deal to get it into the news cycle so that everyone's talking about this instead of some of the problems the administration's been having?
I can't figure out the emotional makeup or the motivations of Kerry or Obama or Wendy Sherman or the people who negotiated this deal. I'm sure they think it's a good one. I mean, I believe Kerry believes what he says, except, the fact of the matter is that Iranians got more than they've ever gotten from the West in something like this. They did it at a moment when they were most economically vulnerable. And the way to think about this, it's not so much that they got some sanctions relief, because they didn't get total sanctions relief. It's true that a lot of the sanctions remain in place, and it's fairly complicated. What they got was the world said, at the end of this whole process, you can continue to enrich uranium. And the whole reason why it's a big deal is because you don't trust the Iranians to have that capability, because one day they could pull a North Korea and say, all right, well, it was nice about negotiating and being a good international citizen, but we'd like a nuclear bomb now.
Right. And Eli, I mean, my understanding is the big deal here is that they are agreeing to enrich uranium at lower levels of intensity, which is consistent with using it for energy rather than weapons. But if that's the case, then that proves that they've been lying all this time when they said, oh, we're only doing this for energy, not for weapons.
Well, I mean, the Iranians always will have some sort of technical excuse, but that's right. They're not. It's not that they have. It's the most important, and that keeps coming back to it. Not only do they not stop enriching uranium while they negotiate, which was an earlier demand of the Bush administration, which is now out the window. It's that at the end of the process, they expect to keep, a good part of their nuclear program. They've gotten legitimization of what was built by hook and by crook, and everybody said is absolutely going to stop. And I think this is going to have a serious repercussion, not just, for the geopolitical stuff we always talk about, what if Iran gets a nuclear weapon? Hopefully they still won't. It's going to have a problem for the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So people who like arms control are going to have a problem, because other countries are going to say, wait a second, Iran, the world's leading sponsor of terrorism, gets to enrich uranium. Why not me?
Yeah. All right, Eli, always good to have you.
Always a pleasure, Eli. Thank you